Welcome, one and all, to the MIRTH Web Show. My name is David Batterina, and for the next hour, I will be your host through the mayhem and insanity of exploring all things creativity. The show exists to help you, the creator, connect with fans, friends, and peers by showcasing not just your work, but your brain, your creative process, and your personality. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell. We are streaming on Tuesdays and Thursdays, typically at 8 p.m. Over the next hour, expect some deep conversation, some lighthearted fun, and prying open the creative brain of my guest, Cal Logan. Before we start, just a quick announcement, because I'm not going to have a show on Thursday, but I will have one on Friday. I will have William Roberts, publisher for Three Ravens Publishing here. Friday is when Space Pew Pew drops, and so we're just going to have a little fun on that stream together Friday at 8. So be there or be square. And let me bring in Cal. Cal, greetings, sir. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing well, and I'm really glad that we got you on here. All technical difficulties all the time, because we connected a little while ago when I put out the feelers to get people on the show, and you're like, Discord is just not having it. But I'm glad we got around to it, and I wanted to reach out to you to get you on here, just to have a cool conversation about all this stuff. So what I want to do to start out is give you some this or that's, and let's do like a quick get to know you. We're going to go for about a minute or so. Before I start, this question doesn't count for the time, and it's the one that I ask everybody, which is, if you were forced to travel in either a homemade hot air balloon or a janky submarine, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, after the events of, what was that, last June, I'm taking the hot air balloon.
Yeah. Yeah. So for some reason that scared some people off, I guess. Yeah. So, we got Awa and Shane. Hello, everybody. And people are going to be filtering in, so feel free to comment and all that kind of stuff. I will do my best to keep an eye on that and put you on there and all those things. So Cal, let's run down this 60 seconds. Don't think about the answers. Just first one that pops into your mind. Okay.
All right.
And we're going to start with, let's polka or death metal.
Death metal.
Death metal it is. Haunted house or enchanted forest?
Haunted house.
Haunted house. Nice. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Dogs it is. And let's go with catapult or trebuchet?
Trebuchet is more effective.
It is, and it's a lot more fun. Never listen to music again, or only able to listen to Kids Bop?
Oh man, come on. I guess no more music ever again.
No more music. Wow.
I wouldn't listen to the Kids Bop anyways. That's the same thing for me.
Own a castle or own a tank?
Tank.
Tank. Nice.
It's just so much fun.
Armored. Yeah. Let's go space pirates or space police?
Space pirates.
Space pirates. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Coffee it is. Let's see. Zombie apocalypse or robot overlords?
Zombie apocalypse. Physically, I think I'd be okay.
You'll be all right.
I can't outsmart a robot.
No. Dinosaurs or dragons?
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. And share a pitcher of ale with the hobbits, or share a pipeweed smoke session with Gandalf? I know.
Those are both extremely appealing. I'll go pipeweed with Gandalf.
Pipeweed with Gandalf. Yeah. There you go. Just like me. All right. No, that's good. Yep. Team Trebuchet. Team Trebuchet is here and ready to go. I don't think anybody's answered catapult, and I'm honestly glad for that. There is just really one right answer.
Have you ever heard of the Werewolf by any chance?
The who?
The Werewolf.
Werewolf.
There was this siege in 1400s England and in Scotland, and the besieging army started building after being unable to start them out. They built this massive trebuchet, and they called it the Werewolf. And they didn't even get to fire a shot because it was so gigantic that the people surrendered the castle before it was completed because they knew they were screwed.
That sounds fantastic, and I want it in my backyard. No, but I've got to look that up now. That's incredible. Yeah. So here's what I want to do is give you 30 seconds. And now that we did just a little get to know you, we know that you're team hot air balloon. I'm a little disappointed, but it's fine. But I want you to take 30 seconds and just introduce yourself, say hi to everybody. The floor is yours. Pitch whatever you want to pitch, and off you go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cal Logan. I've been writing for about 8 years and most recently released my debut novel, Shadowbane, in September. It is an epic fantasy / grimdark that follows two twins who are mercenary demon hunters in a world based off of feudal Japan. It's very character-driven, very bloody and violent, and includes a ton of mythological creatures like demons and yokai.
That's fantastic. Where can we find you? You're just through your site typically, right?
Yeah. So it's available on Amazon and through my website, and then I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just those three.
Just those three. All right.
Yeah.
You know what? Good man. Yeah, we had that chat briefly before we started. That TikTok is just, yeah, it's one of those things.
It's not my thing. I just don't think I could be genuine on there, so I don't see the
Nothing
point.
wrong.
In, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I do see a lot of authors in particular just feel like they have this need to be on every single social platform, and I just feel like that's the wrong way to go. Just because it's like at some point your entire day is just posting and cross posting, and you're not getting anything else done. So kudos to you for keeping it solid. Yeah,
I would lose my mind if I had to be on any more. It's
exactly.
You know, like I work a full-time job and I still want to write and do the things I enjoy doing. So
right,
pick my battles.
I knew as soon as you mentioned bloody and feudal Japan that Jesse was going to be like, "Yep, I'm in." So that's good. That's good. So yeah, I want to have a conversation with you tonight about your creative process. Get to know you a little bit as an author and just as a human being and all those things, and see where all this comes from. So I figured we'd start out with a question that I ask everybody. It's the first question I ask everyone, which is when I say the phrase creative process, what is it that comes into mind for you?
A combination of really kind of reckless brainstorming and then just a ton of anxiety and refinement. So a lot of when I'm brainstorming, I write down ideas even if they sound terrible and I don't even know where they come from. People ask where you get your ideas from. I don't know. Just stuff goes into your head, and sometimes it's shit, and sometimes it's good.
Yep.
And then there's a lot of sitting down and workshopping. Okay, this sounds cool. Can I actually make this work with what I already have?
So, for the process for you, it's just like ideas bouncing around. Like when you're driving, when you're doing something else, is it just like it just kind of pops in there?
Yeah, especially when I'm driving, I do like to do an inspiration watch or an inspiration read of a movie sometimes, or something that I know will have a positive influence on me. Just because it lets me, ironically, get out of my own head and then there's space for ideas, if that makes sense.
Describe that for us. So what do you mean by that? Like, so you'll throw something on that you like a comfort movie kind of thing, like something that you know.
Yeah. Just something that I know I'm really going to enjoy, and I'll just appreciate some aspect of the storytelling, and that'll knock something loose. That not that I'm borrowing an idea from the movie, but it makes me form some connection that then I can bring to my own work.
Right. Oh, excellent. All right. So like, it's time to throw on Conan the Barbarian and give it a watch, and and just kind of go from there. I can see that as it would pull you out of like the ideas spinning and all that. That's an interesting way to phrase it. Give yourself space by investing in another story. Anything recently you've watched that has been like, inspirational in that way for you?
I've probably watched the movie Fury 7 times this year.
Okay. Yeah. Tank movie, right?
Yeah.
See, that's why you chose Tank. I get it.
Yes.
I freaking love that movie, by the way. Shia LaBeouf, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me feels like grimdark in a World War II setting. It's very character driven. It's very atmospheric, and something like that. I always just come away with some sort of appreciation for the character work they do, or the way they're able to set a scene. And obviously it's a visual medium, but there's still a way to try and translate some atmosphere into the written medium. So I always feel like I come out of there with a slightly better grasp on some aspect of storytelling.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's a good, I haven't seen that movie in at least like a year or so. I got to give that one a rewatch because that's a really good one. Yeah. So those, I mean, are you typically into like the darker movies and such?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What are some favorites for you? Apart from
Requiem for a Dream was one of the first movies I watched. I think I was 12 years old. That ruined my life.
I haven't seen it. My girl Jacqueline's in the chat, and she keeps telling me, she's like, you have to, but like it's not. You're probably just going to see it once.
Yeah,
you're probably just going to,
That's a big I'll watch it once and never again movie for a lot of people, and I watch that fairly habitually.
Nice.
I don't only like dark stuff. Lord of the Rings is an annual pilgrimage for me. I'll do the entire trilogy every September or October.
Excellent.
Also, a big fan of just historical epics like Braveheart, Last Samurai, Last of the Mohicans, stuff like
Troy?
that. Oh yeah, love Troy.
Yeah, Troy's a good one. Yep.
I'll even do the 2003 King Arthur by Antonio Fuqua. It's
I don't know if I don't.
It's a super solid B movie, but you get into it enough, and something doesn't have to be a masterpiece to still make you feel something and make you still appreciate some aspect of it that's done well.
Yeah. For me, that's like The Last Dragon. Like I'll watch that, or just we did with my youngest son's 15, and this past weekend I put him through the gamut with Aliens, his first viewing of Aliens, which was really hilarious because he did not expect it to be like that. And then right afterwards, to just break the mood, we watched Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So I was like, no, we're going to do both. And I'm not sure. I asked him afterwards, I said, if you had a choice and you were either going to be stuck on that planet with all the aliens around, like in the med lab, or you had to hitch a ride with Large Marge. And he was like, I'd hang out with the aliens. So like, that just goes to show you. So there it is. All right. So I'm big time on getting inspiration from visual medium. So like TV shows and movies and stuff like that, always gathering something for me. Like a big one was Constantine. Which is really
awesome.
It's so epic, and it hits on so many different things. I love that sort of Lone Ranger trope he's got going in it, and just like everything about it. Obviously like Matrix, I'm a big Keanu guy. So those definitely hit. And then recently watched Severance, and I was just like totally drawn in to that world. It's the whole liminal space thing and everything. So we get it. Generally like my influences are more like Spaceballs and Airplane, but I love the other stuff too for whatever reason.
You do seem to have a very I assume you gravitate towards sci-fi, space pew pew, and right. Congrats on the upcoming release, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
And you seem to kind of have that kind of absurdist sense of humor, so that that merges well with sci-fi, because there's a lot you can do with that if you're willing to go to a goofy place, and that type of world building gives you the chance to play with that.
Yeah, I've got Dr. Dre and Space Pew Pew, so like it's. I'm just mixing it all in. But you know what? It's like, write what you enjoy. You have fun with it. My first novel was urban fantasy. It was much more serious, very psychological. So like I try to write a little bit of everything, for sure. And then I got nonfiction that just came out last week. So like I've been kind of all over the place. But that's really what my brain is like. So it's all good. So tell me a little bit about your book, and you said just released in September, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how long was the timeline of idea to finished?
First idea came out about May 2021. I put down ideas for about a week, and then I started writing it. And then there was a little bit of a layoff because at the time I was actually agented, and then my agent left the industry shortly after I finished drafting it. And it was really long. It was 200,000 words. And I realized I could not approach another agent with it that length. So the idea was either cut it down by like 40% to make it manageable, or do my own thing and self-publish. And that's what I chose. So there was a 6 months where I was just playing Elden Ring and writing a terrible screenplay just to, take my mind off of it and
right.
And make the decision.
So you went into the query trenches with it.
Not with that one. No, I'd gotten an agent from my first manuscript that I wrote, and that died on submission. But I was writing this one, instead, while my first book was on submission, and then he left the industry shortly after I finished drafting it. Oh. So he just left me with this giant 600-page book on my hands.
Right. Well, what do I do with this? Yeah. All right. That's fascinating. Okay. So you said 2021. Where'd the idea come from? Because you mentioned a couple things. Just give me that encapsulation of the book one more time. The feudal Japan and the whole. Just run that by me one more time.
So it's two twins who are mercenary demon hunters in feudal Japan. Basically, there's a cult that is responsible for the demons coming back after a perceived absence, kind of like the White Walkers come back in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
And they're the last two of this divine bloodline. So they're on the front lines against these demons, and they're trying to track down and investigate this cult that they think is responsible for the demons' return.
Where did that come from?
So I had a really scary, crazy nightmare, and that involved demons attacking my wife and I in our house. And I was trying to break down the door to get us out of there. And I woke up in the middle of that. Blood pressure was through the roof. I was sweating and freaking out. And then my dog starts freaking out. And then he starts howling, barking at the door and everything. And I thought someone was trying to break in or something. So I go and check the house. It's fine. I come back to bed. And my dog sits on my chest like this. He never does that. He always lays between us. And he just stares to the door like this for about an hour. And that freaked me out more than the nightmare did. And so it was the whole, hey, can animal, do dogs sense spirits and stuff like that? And
yeah.
I don't really buy into that, but it's a cool concept. So the initial idea was a guy and his dog hunting demons. And then that turned into two twins and their 800-pound Siberian tiger hunting demons.
Oh, nice. That's good. That's excellent. Wow. So was it like a sleep paralysis type of thing? Yeah. Oh man, that's messed up. I've experienced it a couple times. Always something. Yeah. Those are the kinds of things that stick with you for sure. But hey, I mean, kudos to you to taking that and turning it into something really creative. Have you always wanted to write?
Yeah, I've been doing it since I can remember. I started taking it seriously about 8 years ago, but even when I was, 5 or 6, and you get the little, write a half-page story assignment in class or whatever, I would go all in for that kind of stuff.
Right. But that was a back burner thing for you, pursuing other things?
Yeah, I did it recreationally. I actually wrote my first book when I was 17. I would just go to the library during lunch and write. Tried to query it, but it was terrible because I was 17. And and I studied exercise science in college. I wanted a career in the fitness industry. So I just wrote. I didn't write much in college. I was busy partying and lifting weights and everything else. But then I was about 25. I was working my regular job, and I decided that I had the itch to really write, and decided to take a crack at it. So I decided, I'll take it seriously now.
Brilliant, man. That's fantastic. All right. So let me ask you, just in terms of like the hard process for you, like the writing process. Are you a morning writer? Are you an afternoon writer? Are you an evening writer? Like what's it look like when you have a writing session?
It's usually very chaotic because since I'm a personal trainer, I work by appointment. So during the week, I generally write on the train commuting to and from work. I work about 10, 11 hours a day usually. So, and then I'll write during lunch or between appointments if I can, but I have to be able to do it at the drop of a hat. If I have 30 minutes, I have to take advantage of it. Otherwise it doesn't get done. And then on the weekends, I can have a nice long writing session. My favorite is probably on a Friday night. If we don't have plans, I'll come home, do my responsibilities. I might sit down about 5 o'clock and I can write until, maybe 9 o'clock, maybe 10. And that's where, I'll pour myself a whiskey or crack open a beer or two and just, let the creativity flow a little bit. And that's one where I feel like I can get a lot done.
Yeah. Those are the most fun for me when you have those sessions where it's like I just banged out like 4,000 words or whatever. I'm a word count, like I'm a word counter for sure. I don't necessarily consider it the measure of success on a writing session, as long as the quality is good, like I'm happy. But for sure. So that's cool, but that's pretty wild. What do you use for like, do you write by hand or do you do like an app? Is it your phone?
I just use a computer.
Okay. Yep. So like Google.
Yeah, I write in Google Docs, and there was a point where I would actually write on my phone a little bit if I, was on the fly, but I didn't have my computer with me. So that's why I chose to write in Google Docs.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. So that's it. Did you find that difficult to switch into? Because for me, that's really hard. Like I've got 20 minutes. I got to get some words down. What is that like? Like, did that take some getting used to for you?
Yeah. And I still have some sessions where I have 20 minutes to sit down and write. I, change a comma and think of a synonym for the word that's in a sense that's written before it. And that's basically all I get done. And I come out of that feeling, honestly, I feel a little disappointed, but I know it's part of the process. Yeah. Sometimes you get half a page down. Sometimes you don't. It's part of it.
Yeah. You got to give yourself some grace for those things for sure. Um, so let me ask you this one: are you typically planner, like plotter, pantser? Where do you fall in the whole writing spectrum?
Probably in the middle. There are some things that I almost always know how a story is going to end.
Yep.
When I'm thinking of something, it's concept, ending, and I have those, and those rarely change. The small details might change, but I know my endpoints, and I'll usually know one or two significant midpoints. How I get there is usually a mystery to me because the stuff I write is very character driven,
Mm,
and I need to write enough of the story to get a really good grasp of the characters. And I
right.
usually try to add layers. Hey, okay, why would they make this decision, or why would they do this thing? Okay, like this decision they make, why would they make that decision? Because they see the world this way. What caused them to see the world this way? And some of those root causes I might not know until the third or fourth draft.
Right. Oh goodness. You know what's funny? I'm very much the same. Where it's like I've got this concept, I've got this idea. I'll even have like a character in mind without a name or anything else, but like I know some of the traits, but I know where it's going to end. And so it is a matter of finding those midpoints, that the beats that you need to hit, and then just sort of like filling in. Starting point is always a tricky one, because I typically like to start in the middle of something that's just really confusing for the reader, that you've got to sort of unravel through the first chapter or three, as you go, just to make it interesting. I'm not big on like exposition to start, like let's explain the world for 8,000 words. Like I don't have time for that myself, so it's like no, I'm not gonna go there. Okay, so when you're thinking about characters and stuff like that, where do you get your inspiration from on characters, or villains? What kind of villains do you typically like to write? Like where do they tend to fill in, since you're very character driven? Like at what point do they enter the process for you?
I'm usually late to the party with villains. I usually like to have a very solid grasp of the characters. In my first book, I realized I actually didn't write an antagonist,
No.
because it's basically the story of a character being the victim of their own destructive choices. And
Love it. Yeah.
but then I realized you still need some. There's an off-page antagonist essentially.
Yeah.
That someone he's working against, but that guy doesn't get a line of dialogue in the story. So, and I realized it just didn't work. You kind of need something a little more substantial to kind of pit the protagonist against. So I usually find like the foil to the protagonist after I have a good sense of who the protagonists are.
Right.
So
Yeah, and then basically color them in. Right. That makes a lot of sense. I'll do the same thing with side characters, to be honest, because if I'm writing the protagonist a certain way, and I'm like, well, what's the best personality to shove in here to challenge that person? That's the character I need.
yeah.
And then let it all, like, you just whip into a frenzy, with the two of them, like he doesn't like this, and they, and then you just get all the good juicy conflict in there. Okay, so are you okay, so you mentioned just like writing 20-30 minutes sometimes, so you do have to kind of jump in the headspace quick, unless it's just like that planned writing session, and those are fantastic. Are you a listen to music while you write kind of guy?
Oh yeah.
Yep. What do you listen to?
So in general, I'm a big like rock, grunge, and alternative fan, big metal fan. I watched your first episode with Sam, and I know you said that you listen to Tool when you write. So I love Tool. I can't listen to them when I write, but I love their music.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, it's my writing stuff is usually pretty soft. I don't listen to a lot of metal. So a lot of alternative or almost indie-ish rock stuff that's kind of spacey or trancey, and then somewhere halfway through my playlist, it devolves into rock-based instrumentals and some experimental stuff, and then it'll devolve into movie soundtracks and then video game soundtracks.
Oh,
so
nice.
it just flushes further and further down the nerd spiral.
That's epic. Yeah, I tried with like I'm a Gen X guy. I'm huge on grunge. I was in high school when like Nevermind came out. So like all of that is just very near and dear. I love new metal. Like I love Limp Bizkit and stuff like that, just because of the groove of it and everything. When I'm writing, it tends to be Tool or Opeth or like some of these like genty bands, because there's limited lyrics. It's a soundscape. It's hard. The songs are like 9 minutes, with changes and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, for me, it helps put me in the headspace. But writing to rock, like it isn't, don't the words messy? They don't mess you up. It's not like a.
So I try to choose I don't write for example, I grew up on like Audio Slave was one of my favorite bands, so I wouldn't write to Audio Slave. But I have like Nine Inch Nails. There's a band that 5.0, they're kind of like a 2000s metal band, stuff like that. But I pick specific songs that are like I have a one writing playlist, and that's what I write to. So I pick and choose and I cultivate it very carefully. So nothing anthemic or catchy. It's the opposite. It's stuff that does fade into the background for me.
Gotcha.
And the thing is, because it's the same songs over and over again, even if the song initially caught my ear because it's catchy, it's still at this point it's background noise.
Yeah. No, I get that. All right. I'm just trying to picture like writing to like Foo Fighters and stuff. I just don't know if I could like quite get there.
Yeah, I wouldn't put something like Foo Fighters on there, even though I generally enjoy them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, I hear you.
It'd be stuff like Alice Genius or just something like that's like a lighter modern alternative band, but stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So the stuff I listen to most of my day to day is not what I write to.
Right. But what do you generally listen to day to day?
So the day to day would be like the grunge and the new metal and stuff like that. Okay. But I generally don't write to that.
Right.
Nine Inch Nails and Deftones are like two of the bands that are so great that I'll listen to them anytime.
Yep, I will write to Deftones for sure. They have that kind of vibe.
It's very ethereal but melodic but heavy.
Yep,
his voice just kind of blends.
Not quite like shoegazy, but like still just like has that. Yeah, they have that quality. Definitely. That's awesome. All right, good to find a fellow fan of some of these things for sure. Okay, so you'll do that. You've got your playlist. When it comes to like movie soundtracks and video games, like what are some of your choices there?
The big movie soundtrack for me is Last Mohicans, but there's also stuff from The Grey, from Fury, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. Nice. And then for video game soundtracks, the two big ones in there are Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VII.
Chrono Trigger.
Oh yeah.
Damn. Nice. All right. No, that's a good callback. And yeah, Final Fantasy VII, obviously. That's such a good choice.
Did you play that battle music on repeat and I could write entire battle scenes to that for 2 hours.
Did you play the remake?
No.
You played the original though.
Yeah.
I played the hell out of that original.
I spent a lot of hours in front of a boxy TV, this big on the nightstand.
For sure. I'm still not over it, to be honest. What they did to her. I'm still not over it. I'm still mad at Sephiroth. Yeah, I can't. That's good though. So I want you to think of a time where you had some struggle writing. Anything that you were possibly going through, whether it is, you mentioned at the start, you mentioned anxiety. So was there a time where it was just really, really difficult to get the words flowing out? And what did life look like when that was happening?
So the thing that came to mind was a period where I was actually writing very, very well, but it's because I was in a really rough spot. But so writing was the one outlet I had. Basically, we lost my father-in-law to melanoma. And this was in 2021. So this is the year that I started working on Shadowbane. Lost my agent, took 6 months off. And he got sick. He really took a downturn in October, basically spent the month in the hospital and didn't make it out. And then lifting is also a big outlet for me in my day-to-day. And so he died November 1st. And then on Thanksgiving morning of that year, I blew my back out.
Shoot.
I was basically just rage lifting every day and just, trying to process it. Yep. And then I got hurt so bad, I couldn't lift for about 2 months. And so at that point, all I had was writing. And I ended up, and I'm generally a slow writer, but I wrote 43,000 words in 18 days to close out the year and finish the first draft.
Whoa. Yeah, that's some output, man. Holy crap.
Yeah. And it was some pretty great for a first draft, right? Just to get it down, but it was some pretty, raw, writing, like going back, rereading it. I was like, yeah, this tracks for where I was at mentally and emotionally at that time.
Right. I hear you. Yeah. So that's funny. So pouring into the writing is something that basically helped you pull out of all of that. How long did it take for you to just kind of feel like you were stabilized after that?
Different parts. stabilize at different times. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes you'd be fine for a few months, and then you have a day where it just seems to sit with you really heavily. I think I was kind of burned out after that, so I didn't write for maybe. Let's see that was. I'm confused with my timelines. My agent left the industry after that happened because I finished drafting that in December, and I sent it to him, and then so I didn't look at it for about 3 months, and I was intentionally recharging my batteries, and I was starting to feel a little bit better. And then he left the industry on St. Patty's Day. I have bad luck with holidays, apparently.
Yeah, right.
So it was St. Patty's Day when he told me he was leaving the industry.
Like March of 22. Yeah.
Yes. And I didn't start editing Shadowbane again until September of 2022.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a hiatus for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the frustrating part there was that I wanted to be able to move forward with it, but I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I wanted to query again or if I wanted to go self-publish. It was a huge decision. And I took such a long time to make that decision because I was scared of messing it up.
Well, for sure. And that's, especially when you're in the thick of it like that, it becomes a difficult one to sort of square. That self-publishing decision is, it really feels like you're just jumping off a cliff in a lot of ways. Yeah. You're like, there's no, it's just you. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It's just you. Yeah, it's funny. I had a similar experience with my first book in that I was like 5,000 words into it when my brother passed away. And from there, it was like I got the book done to avoid dealing with that. And then after it was the end, that's when everything really hit, but it was like a year later. And so then came the depression, and then came all that other stuff that just sort of like turned into a soup. And then 6 months after that, like I lost my dad. So it was like, those moments happen. And I think using writing to get out of them is certainly important. But I think one of the big things is to, just like you said, like you knew that you wrote all of those words at the end of that it was going to need some work. It was rough. So again, like you give yourself the grace of like, I had some success. I had an output, at least, and then shape it along afterwards. So what about like right now, are you currently like writing, or is right now just like kind of dealing with launch and the September, like, the launch and all the aftermath of that?
I'm trying to do it all. So,
yeah.
So, I've been doing the launch, and I finished drafting the sequel to Shadowbane in October. I gave myself 2 weeks, and now I'm editing.
Oh, thanks.
And it's actually kind of funny because when I was trying to finish drafting it, you go through waves of delusional grandeur and then self-loathing when you're drafting, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But by the time I was finishing this, I was like, this piece of shit book, like this sucks. And then and I took 2 weeks off, and then I went back to the beginning. I was like, this is pretty decent. I can work with this. I was like, I don't know why I was so bent out of shape. Just I think I think part of it was, especially when I was getting my editorial and ARC reviews, it got some good praise that Shadowbane did, and I'm very grateful for that. But then I'm comparing that to what I'm seeing when I'm drafting, and I know it's not good because it's a draft, and right. It was like I had to reconcile the two of that this thing that I'm just kind of spitting out right now is it's not ready for consumption. Why would I compare it to the thing I polished 6 times? For sure.
What's the so what is that after draft process for you? Do you edit as you go, or is it just like little like fix ups here and there type of thing?
So I have in the past. Excuse me. I have in the past. That's something I try to change differently. Actually, I try to not get caught down research spirals.
Okay.
If I found myself hanging on something too long, I would just in bold. I'd leave myself a note. Here's what I'm stuck on. Here's my intent. Move on to the next thing that seems clear.
Oh, nice.
And I'm trying not to edit as I go, because I think that's another reason Shadowbane took me so long. Even leaving aside that hiatus, it was about 2.5 years for the book. And there were parts where I would edit some scenes and then re-edit them as I was going, and then only to substantially change them in the second or third round of revisions. So it's hard for me to put down prose. I don't think is very efficient or clean, but I'm trying to make my process more efficient in the long run. So I'm trying to not edit as I go and just to let the words get down. We'll see if it ends up being more efficient in the long run, because I might be making more work for myself.
I'm curious. Yeah, you have to let me know, because I'm definitely an edit as you go kind of guy. But at the end of it, I've got a pretty clean manuscript, by the time I'm done. And then I do I'll do another round. I actually do a round of edits digital, like rereading, read aloud, and all that kind of stuff. I do that all the way along the way. But once I've done, and I'll typically throw it into like Pro Writing Aid or something like that, just to catch some of the grammar stuff and some of the, some of the things that the repeated words that I glaze over when I'm reading my own. But then I'll print out the entire thing, and I go through with highlighters and Post-it notes, and just start making the marks, because I feel like when you read it on page, you catch so much that you don't when it's on screen.
That's one thing I've not tried that yet, but I hear a lot of people talk about it. So that's
I don't know. I thought it felt like the right thing to do. It wasn't just copying anybody. I was just like, I think I need to see this like on paper, so I got like print, like it's a ream of paper, obviously. But I'm like, I'll go through just chapter by chapter and, scrawl some notes in it or whatever else. And then I apply those edits, on there. And then by the end of it, I'm like, all right, I feel like this is ready for an editor. I'll do beta. You do beta readers, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what's that part of the process like for you? Do you just kind of like hand it to them and be like, just tell me what you think, or are you more structured than that?
So there's 4 questions that I ask them to keep in mind, and that's what's awesome, what sucks, what's unclear, what didn't you believe, and then
nice.
And then I stole this from someone. I forget where to give credit, but I picked it up in a YouTube video. Might have been Brandon McNulty.
Okay. Yep.
But those served me pretty well. And then I tell them, feel free to obviously give me general impressions, but
sure,
those are things that I want to be aware of. And then my beta reading experience with Shadowbane was really nice. I found people on Reddit. I actually beta swaps with them. And
really? Okay.
Yeah. And they were all great, and it was largely positive feedback, which is good. But there was one thing I tried pacing wise. I tried a time jump for the sake of efficiency and word count, and they all said it didn't work. And I was wondering if it would work or not. And they just said there was too much change that happens off screen that they're like, I didn't believe this part because there's so much changes off screen. And they said, and it just kind of interrupted the pacing. And so I went back and drafted 100 new pages to smooth that out, so there's no major time jump. And then that ended up being one of my favorite parts of the story. So that's the feedback that readers can give you. Sometimes you take a risk as a writer, and you need to know if it works or not. And sometimes it doesn't.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I tend to, I'll give my betas like a 10 question, like questionnaire. And basically just like tailored to, I do it in 10,000 word increments. So like, here's 10,000 words, and here are the things that I'm like, I really want to know, and expand on it, or don't, just give me a yes or no or whatever. And then, adding to it. Was there, just like you said, is there something that was a little confusing? Is there something that you were stuck on? Anything along those lines. And it's funny when you do it that way, you'll have, like, let's say I send out to 7 people, I may have 6 that come back and they're like, this was great. Like, love this chapter. And then 1 that's just like, I was really confused. I'm like, well, I know what to ignore, like that one. I'm like, I get it. I could probably explain it, but it's like, not everything is for every reader. So you understand that too. When it's like a half, or like 4 say one thing, 3 say something else on one of them. All right, I probably need to get to work on that, clarify it, et cetera. So you wrote a scene just in between, basically. Did you still do a time jump, or did you just like write the whole thing out?
It was a much smaller time jump, and it was about 100 pages, so it was significant. Probably about 8 or 9 chapters that contained most of the events that then would essentially drive that chain. Kind of like, hey, this 2-week period, but extrapolated over 3 months instead of just a 3.5 month time jump. So, and tie it into the main plot a little better, whereas before they said it felt like a side quest. So
Interesting.
It was a huge structural problem, which is why they all called me out on it. And I'm glad they did, because now I'm really happy with how it ended up.
Yeah, that's good. So what about a time, just getting back to that whole like mindset thing for you, where you felt like you were creating and everything was just firing on all cylinders and you're like totally good, happy, writing, words are flowing, and then you're like unstoppable. And what did life look like at that point for you?
That probably, I can't think of a major period where it's been like that, but I'm lucky if I have 2 or 3 weeks that feel like that. And those will happen a couple times in a year, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
But usually that just looks like no major obligations or deadlines coming up where I have time just to be a little bit creative and to not have so much on my plate. So, I mean, there was a year where I went through 2 major like role and employer changes. Just a lot of my company kept getting bought out basically, and I kept getting promoted, which is nice, but then new roles and responsibilities. And then we were kind of unsure of if that transition was going to stay in effect or not. So that made it really hard to write because my day-to-day was so demanding. And there's a point where I was working 2 jobs for about a year. So that was the opposite mindset to be creative. Then, well, here's a good one. So when stuff finally calmed down, my role was reduced. And the responsibilities were reduced, and my expectations were just much more clear and streamlined, and I was able to deliver on that. That gave me the downtime I needed to then really be creative. And that happened last June. And that was around the time when I really hit full stride in finishing Shadowbane.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I was, my workouts were in a good place where they were making my life better, but not demanding too much of me. Right. And, like I was seeing my friends, I was like, had a good social life, and it just seemed like everything was not necessarily firing on all cylinders because I wasn't going pedal to metal on anything, but that's what gave me the space to then put a lot of effort into writing in a way that was consistent over a period of, that one probably lasted a few months, and that's what allowed me to get a lot of work done. And it felt productive without being super strenuous.
Nice. Yeah. That's honestly, that's the sweet spot right there. I find that like if I have that overproduction for a period of time, there's a down period afterwards. It's inevitable.
Like you can hammer something out, but it's always somewhat of a blowback or a hangover after that.
Right. Exactly. So you do, okay. So you're a lifter, you do powerlifting?
Yes.
All right. Requires a lot of discipline, and a lot of dedication for that. There's not really room for, I can't imagine there's room for creativity in powerlifting. You're pretty like, you've got to be structured, because if you start to do something in a different way, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah. That's basically, you write a plan for, 8, 12 weeks, and you stick to it rep by rep, and whoever executes the best usually, and ends up on the podium.
Yeah. My nephew's, he just competed in Olympia. He's top 15 in the world for classic physique. And the stuff that he has to do, he gets a cheat meal like once every couple months or whatever, but somebody's telling him what to eat for every single meal. His everything is so planned out, notebooks and this whole thing. I'm like, man, I can't even imagine like what you have to do to keep that kind of a pace up. So that's a real contrast from something so creative in terms of writing, which is just like, I'm coming up with characters and a world and like all of these different things. Do you find that one kind of plays off and feeds into the other?
I think so. Similar to what I was talking about, watching something I enjoy or reading something I enjoy kind of gives me my head space to let other ideas come. I think turning my brain off and just being like, you're going to hit this lift for this many pounds, for this many reps, for this many sets, and then you're going to do this and that, and shut up and stop thinking about it because that's what's happening. That mentality is really nice to just turn my brain off and just bang my head against some iron for a bit. And then I come out of that and, my head's empty. I'm exhausted, but usually in a good way. Sometimes you're too burnt out to be mentally productive, but that's usually if you're competing. Yeah. But I don't compete super often, maybe twice a year in a good year. So,
gotcha.
Usually I hit a good heavy lift, clear my head. That shuts down a lot of the noise that's usually counterproductive to the creative process. And then that gives me time to, I'll be sitting there stretching or cooling down. And that's when the ideas just kind of start just
Right.
floating in.
Well,
So
yeah, it's a shift for you in what you're doing, for sure. Like that intense part is over. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, fascinating. All right, so yeah, I mean, so I guess for you, like a lot of it is about balance. Like you're balancing life, you're balancing the writing. It's the discipline of lifting. It's the creativity on the writing side, and then self-published. And there's a whole business and marketing end of that. What is that like for you?
that's been probably the most overwhelming thing. And so I got thick skin about the quality of writing pretty fast, through some tough love experiences early on, which is good for me. Um,
Gotcha.
Now I need to learn how to apply that to marketing, and to, oh, this initiative, failed, or this post didn't do well, or I tried this thing and it generated nothing, and that stings a little bit.
Yep.
And I just realized, well, I'm still very new at this, right? I wasn't good at writing when I'd only been doing it for 3 months. I'm not an expert at marketing or even close to that. So I need to, like you said earlier, kind of give yourself some grace. I need to just, be willing to make some mistakes, and just learn until I have a smooth, defined process like I do for writing.
Right. It's funny because this brings up something. My last week, my first nonfiction released, and I wrote it with two other co-authors, and it's called Joy Jitsu. And it's just about, it's about concepts like gratitude and like being of service to other people and things like that, and just to be a happier person, to live with more joy. But one of the things that we talk about and we discuss in there is white belt mentality, and approaching things like, you have a martial arts background to some degree, right?
Yep, I did jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, wrestling in high school. Did that stuff
Perfect.
for a number of years.
Yep. I ran a dojo for 12 years. So like, I totally get it. Muay Thai's, oh yeah. Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
had a blast. I loved it. And a lot of that was being in service to others, like, because I had a flock, really. And, Muay Thai was one of my favorites. Man, I just love that. Just hitting the pads and sweating it out, and just going bananas in there.
My brother just picked up Muay Thai, and he was saying how good he feels, and he's trying to say how much he enjoys it. I'm like, yeah, it's fun to hit stuff. He's like, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, for sure. Like, wait, I'm allowed to kick? Like, yeah. And so, it's this whole concept of a white belt mentality, because like you the first time you step on the mats and you're just like, I know zero about this. So I've just got to be the sponge, and I've got to soak this all in. And a lot of times pick what works for me and use that and apply that, in your comfortable spots, and then just sort of like expand from there. And I think approaching writing the same way it's really helpful, and even marketing. Like, all right, like I'm the white belt, man. Like, what do I do? And then you look at some of the other people and you're like, wow, like look at them cranking this out. And like, they have this whole promotion machine going, even though they're self-published, and so it is a matter of finding what works for you and, applying it that way. For me, like this show is part of that. This is my way of being able to help other authors, help with their marketing, help get them out there. And also, like, I mean, I ran the school, like I always felt like I learned more by teaching, than, because you learn a lot from other people and all these little snippets that you can, carry into what you're doing. So hearing about like your creative process, I've heard so many stories of people that, they're like, yeah, if I'm, struggling with something that I'm writing, I'll switch the music. So many people listen to soundtracks. I'm like, I really got to try that. Like, just for something different to shake it up. So it's amazing what you can pick up just by having some of these conversations, really. Do you go ahead? Sorry.
What you said about learning through teaching. So that really resonates, because I'm a personal trainer. So basically my day-to-day, I teach people not just how to lift weights, right? But how to have a better relationship with fitness and a healthy lifestyle. And yeah, you pick stuff up just by exposing yourself to these other people with different experiences. And yeah, you grow to learn to understand not only the subject matter, whatever you're dealing with, but also yourself better. Because they ask me questions that I would not have thought to think about. And, they're like, oh, like, how are you always so motivated? And then I realized I was like, I'm not. but there's and I work out anyways, right? Because there's a level of discipline that involves. But it's something that I would not have thought to examine the nature of my own motivation or what makes me feel more or less motivated until clients started asking me something like that.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, and you will start to pick up, if you're paying attention, you've got the open mind. And I think that's really the key, is to have some humility about it. Being like, I can learn something from anybody. And, I've told this story a few times. I wrote an article in, it was Martial Arts Success magazine. It was one of the first published pieces that I ever had. And the article was about this young lady I was teaching. She was, I think, 8 years old when she came in. And right off the bat, there was something about, like, she was kind of like a firecracker, right? Like, she just had like that, just like kind of an attitude. She had like adult smarts and sarcasm, on her. And it was really funny. Like, our big thing was like, look, we're doing all the push-ups. And like, I don't care if it takes you a long time. If we're going to drop and we're going to do 20 of them, make sure you do 20, and if you're having a hard time and it takes you longer, I don't even care. Like, I just want you to get to the finish line. That was our big thing. And she came up to me. It was a few weeks that she was in class, and she came up. She's like, Sensei, I have to talk to you. I was like, all right, fine. What's going on? And she's like, every time you've told us to do the 20 push-ups, I haven't done 20 because I've been embarrassed and I'm slower, and I didn't want people looking at me. And I'm like, holy cow, just like to have the wherewithal as an 8-9-year-old to come up and approach an adult that you've only known for a couple of weeks and be that honest about it, And so it's like, all right, well, listen, I don't care, and I'm proud of you for saying so, and like having that personal accountability. But like, if it takes you longer to do them, like, just let me know what number you're on. Like, I'll do them with you, like we'll get them done. We'll get to the end of it and things like that. And, it helped me realize, like, there's no use in looking at this person or looking at that person and saying, I need to do what they're doing exactly, or I need to be that person, or what have you, because we are our own writers. We have our own experience. We've been through our own things. Creatively, we work in vastly different ways. We have some similarities. So there really is no metric to say that you should be this or that. And one of the worst things you can do, especially in a jiu-jitsu gym, is look at somebody with a higher belt and be like, have a chip on your shoulder, because they're going to knock it off. Like, nobody's messing around, in there. You get humbled very quickly.
Yeah.
So what was your martial arts experience like?
So I started in high school wrestling, joined the team on a bet, because a junior bet me that I couldn't last the whole season. So I went in with a chip on my shoulder day one in wrestling.
Oh, that's great.
I was not even 5 feet tall when I was a freshman, 90 pounds. That's what got me into lifting. I ended up turning into like an okay wrestler, like, about 500 starting on varsity, right? But I wasn't like, winning like state or anything crazy like that.
Yeah, you're right.
And then I got a kid on the team, was training in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu at this local gym. So he brought me in, I trained with them for about 2 years, and then the head instructor there dissolved the gym and moved back to Michigan to further his training. And then I went to Midwest Training Center. Like Clay Guidi used to train out of there. I missed him by a little bit, but that's where he came up through. And then I was there for another couple of years. And that was around when I was in college. So then we also had a student-run organization on campus, and I ended up becoming the president of that. So doing a little bit of, I was, coaching beginners and stuff, but then still obviously needing some coaching myself. Yep. And then there was a local boxing gym in town that the coach would let me come out and spar on the weekends. And so I had a few boxing fights out of there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's excellent.
So yeah, it was a few years, nothing super extensive. Just good enough to rub shoulders with people who really knew what they were doing and wouldn't rip my arm out of its socket.
Oh, for sure. But it's funny. But it does end up forming a lot of you, though. Like, it's especially when it comes to discipline and humility, man. I'm telling you, like, that's really, it's so good for you. And especially in terms of just like trying to finish something out, and like knowing that like there's a measure of success, and you're either going to get it or you're not. Like I did when I started doing that, I started getting into like those crazy like obstacle races, like Spartan races.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
so I got my trifecta in 2013. I started doing those, and that was the same thing. Like I was at the starting line for these, and I'm there, and these are like they were filming for like ESPN that day, or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I just hope to get to the end alive, and that's it. But that was my metric for success. And the same thing with writing. When I wrote the first book, like, this is a success if one person I don't know buys it, reads it, and likes it. I've won, and there it was. It ended up doing like pretty well. And your path is what it is. But I think all of these things for you, that experience, that's probably really, really helped you in terms of the writing, getting it done, having the discipline to drop 20 minutes and like do something and kind of keep focused that way. Do you feel like that has an impact or
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is, I say something equivalent to this to my clients occasionally, where because sometimes they say that they wish they'd be getting more results, and there's you want to hold your client accountable, but you also want to take accountability, right? Because coaching's a two-way street. And some people don't have the time or the desire to be in there 4 or 5 days a week, and they don't want to weigh their food and measure everything they eat. And so kind of tell them, hey, like this is like the results you're getting are probably about what you can expect for the level of effort you're putting in. Like if you're okay with this, like this is probably what you should expect. If you want more, here's some adjustments we can make. If not, like don't think of yourself as not having gotten what you wanted. Like you have reached success. Like right. You are right. And then talking about like the mental benefits of something like that and the discipline. And somebody saw something like, you come in here 3 times a week, you work hard, you're making yourself do something that's just difficult and feels shitty sometimes. And there's a value in that too. And that knowing that you voluntarily commit to this because it's in your best interest. And that thing, translates to other aspects of your life as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's really excellent. Let me ask you just a couple more questions, and we're gonna do the fun stuff, right? You're gonna get the Wheel of Doom. But first, I want to ask you.
So fun.
Oh, it's super fun. No, we're gonna have a good time. So let me talk to you a little bit about criticism, because you had mentioned that like it's certain ones at certain times cut, at certain times you were like steeled to it, and you mentioned some tough love critiques. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? When criticism happens, you're able at this point, I'm guessing, to put it in its appropriate place. Was it always like that, and what was that tough love situation like?
So I think I just had too much expectations on myself, right? So when I first started writing, I drafted Sundering. I thought editing at the time was spell check and a couple commas, right? I didn't realize the substantial nature of revisions. And so I sent it to beta readers who were, friends, right? People, acquaintances. So the people that should not be your beta readers, right? And 6 of them, not a single one. Sorry, 1 finished it. The other 5 DNF'd it and didn't respond when I followed up. So that was kind of my first inkling of maybe you're not as good at this as you thought, and that stung pretty deep. I didn't get mad at them or anything, or I didn't harass them, but it didn't feel too great. So I went back and worked on it some more, queried it, was getting shut down across the board, and then there was a Twitter pitch contest, and an editor liked it, so I submitted it. It was for a small press, and they gave me an offer, and I was super excited, right? I remember we were having drinks at this dive bar across the street from where I work. It was a Friday afternoon, and I saw that the email preview come through. Congratulations, we'd like to offer you a contract. And I had a beer in my hand. I went to the table, I slammed it down. I was like, yeah, the meme of like the kid pouring champagne on himself, but he's like everyone else is on the podium up there. That's kind of what it was like. And there was this other writer, his name's Ross Ritchell, and he writes military fiction, and he works out at the gym, and he knew what I was trying to do. So I told him, and I said I had a couple questions because I was just new at this, and I offered, said, hey, can we grab lunch? Would you mind walking me through what I'm seeing here? So we did, and he basically, it was a very small press, and the contract was very conservative. So he outlined that they're not trying to screw you over, but this is the language of a publisher who does not expect to sell many copies. And no advance, basically the bare minimum royalty. That's it's industry standard. No author copies, anything like that, unless you paid at cost for them.
Yeah.
And he asked me some questions about my priorities and my values, like why are you trying to get published? What does this mean to you? What are your long-term goals? And he was just trying to get me to understand myself a little better and define my own priorities. And then he said, and the funny thing is we were not super close. Like I knew him from work, but I didn't hang out outside of work with him. And he goes, honestly, I think you're getting bare bones offer from a small press. He says, this means your work is, good, but not good enough. Right? He says, if it was better, you'd be getting better offers. And he basically said, you're just not there yet. And he said that, because he could tell I was hesitant to absorb this. He says, I think you're chasing the validation of being published rather than being patient and doing the thing that's actually going to get you where you want to be. And, he laid into me a little bit more. He wasn't being cruel about it, but he was just being very straightforward and direct.
Objective.
And he basically said, if I were in your shoes, he says, go get some sand in your crotch, go get pissed off, just go back and make your work better. He said, he says, and do whatever it takes to get one of the agents who's still on your list, and stop trying to look for the first exit on the highway. Basically, he's like, if you were my friend, that's what I would say.
I mean, that's pretty epic advice.
Oh yeah, It, probably the single most impactful moment of my writing career.
Right.
Because he was, I sat on that for a day or two, turned down the contract, went back, rewrote it, and then that was the manuscript that eventually got agented. So it took about another year or two of work. And so from when I started to when I got the agent offer, that was 4 years. So yeah.
The self-publishing plunge for you after these kinds of events, like what was that like?
It was pretty nerve-wracking, but ultimately, and because of events like that, I think I feel really good about it. And even though I mentioned that the marketing is kind of a new beast I'm dealing with, I still overall feel good because I know that I've overcome and dealt with some serious adversity, both writing related and not writing related.
Yep. And
I know even if I don't know what to do, I trust myself to eventually figure it out. I know I'm going to make mistakes. Then that's, I turned into a pretty good lifter because I made a lot of stupid decisions lifting. And so I figure, the same can happen with writing as long as I'm patient and hardworking enough.
Yeah. I think it's important to know when you don't know something. And a lot of people miss that, where it's like, I know I need to learn something here. Like there's something is missing or something is not connecting or what have you. But yeah, it is all part of the journey and all of that. But I mean, shoot, like we connected on Twitter. I see your posts and stuff like that. It's the same, it's the same thing. Like it works, things like that work and they work over time. And, that's the thing about self-publishing is like you're wearing all the hats. You have to be your own marketing department. You've got to, there's the actual words and then there's the promo and then there's the being able to talk about your work in such a way where you're like, I wrote a book or whatever. Because that's not really going to do anything or move the needle in any way. So you have to, there is really that balance. And I think a lot of people are just trying to figure it out where it's like, I've got to talk about my own work in, like I'm proud of my own work. I've got to approach it that way. I've got to share some of these things with people and, but I also have to not just be like, this is the greatest thing you're ever going to read, and like all of that, I mean, like I may say some of those things because of how absurd it is for a book called Space Pew Pew to be called like the best thing ever. But like that's just part of the brand. Like at this point,
right. So, it fits the tone.
It kind of does. Self-deprecating can only go so far, but I'm like way more comfortable doing that for sure. So but it is all learning process. And one of the things that opened my eyes was going to a couple of conventions, and seeing the professional authors there, and just, you know, I met this one guy who he writes a book a month. He's like, I get up at 8 a.m. I have breakfast. I'm sitting down, you know, at my desk by 9. I write and I have a snack for lunch. I write until 5 o'clock. I'm done. After a month, I'm finished. And then 2 weeks of editing, 2 weeks of like something, you know, just taking 2 weeks off. And then the month after that, I'm going to write another book. And he just cranks them out. And I'm like, okay, you know, that's like that's pretty epic. And then he actually showed, he had a whole slideshow thing going, and he showed what he does on Amazon, and he does Amazon ads, and he's like, we're talking like ad buys into thousands of dollars. But he's also, you know, he's making just like 5 figures in a month, you know, out of all this kind of stuff, you know, cranking out his books and his series. Somebody at the con showed up to his panel dressed as one of his characters. I'm like, well, those are goals, you know, like how cool is that? You know, you'll get there someday, right? Somebody's going to be there as a feudal Japanese demon hunter while you're sitting there giving a talk somewhere.
Yeah, I would lose my mind. That would be the coolest thing ever.
Right? Well, that's what I'm saying. Like fan art and like stuff like that. Like those are the things that really like those things help us, you know, a great deal. You know, and until then we do what we can to just support each other and all those kinds of things to try and get us all, you know, try and get everything. Like it's more readers is never a bad thing, you know, and a lot of people see writing as competitive, like, oh, this person's selling more books than I, you know, et cetera. It's like, you're thinking of it the wrong way. It's like the way to think about this is what can I learn from that person? And also more readers is fine. Like it's your success doesn't impact my success at all. You know, and if somebody likes to read funny books and they find this dude funny, they may like my books. Like none of this is bad. Like we're all just kind of in this boat together.
Well, it's the rising tide theory, right? Rising tide lifts all boats. Yep,
100%. So let me ask you one more thing before we get into some fun stuff. If there's anything you could change about your creative process, whether it's, you know, your efficiency, your flexibility, the output, or anything like that, is there anything that you would change?
Just the efficiency. Like I said, I tend to draft pretty slowly. So I track my word counts. I tell my clients what gets measured gets done in terms of like tracking their weight and progress and stuff. So I figured I'd take my own advice. And if I can get like 5,000 words in a week, that's a pretty darn good week. So, and you know, and there are people who do, you know, 2-3K in a day. So, you know, I wish I could write a little faster. At the same time, I know that what I write pretty methodically because I'm, you know, it's epic fantasy. There's a lot of characters. I'm spinning a lot of plates. There's, in this case, it's, you know, Japanese mythology. So I want to make sure I have my I's dotted and T's crossed. I'm not gonna, you know, I don't want to like be, you know, inauthentic or insensitive in the way I portray, like, you know, stuff that like around the religion and mythology and everything. So I know that I do need to take my time and do my research and keep stuff well thought out. But it's something where I'm like, oh, like I wish I got more words down, you know, just on a per hour. But
right.
You play the hand we're dealt, right?
Yeah.
I've accepted that I write slowly.
I'm in the same boat. It takes me a while to churn it out, you know, and I spend a lot of time up here, but by the time it's ready to get out, like it gets out pretty smooth. It's just the time, you know, the time and the timing. And I have this weird struggle where like I have a hard time writing when I'm home. You know, so I like to write in coffee shops and things like that because it's just a different set of distractions that actually works with my creative brain instead of the ones where like I've got like there's something that needs to be done over in the room over there, you know, stuff like that. So it's, you know, we're all different in that way, but I think one of the important things, and it seems like you have a handle on it, is you know how you work, you know, and that's really critical. And you've also got that open mind of like, this is where I can learn something. This is where I need, you know, I need to work on this. I need to work on that. And I think a lot of that probably does come from like the lifting and the training and all those things. So kudos to you, man.
Thank you.
That's awesome stuff. So, hey, you want to play a little bit? Let's do some pitch storm. What do you say?
I've been dreading this for a while now, but let's do it.
You know what? I'll be gentle. We're going to be fine. We'll go through and do the thing and just see what it's like. The cool thing about this is that we get to generate something that has never existed before. And so, this is a real-time look into your intuition working in your brain and then manifesting something in real life, which is pretty awesome just from a creation standpoint. So a long line of creators behind you. We've had some fun pitch storms in here. So let me introduce this thing and I'll give you the rules. Boom. Next up, we're going to play some pitch storm. This little exercise provides us a live real-time look into our guest's brain. This is a fully random event all about creation in real time with neurons firing and all that. I want you to be able to witness the magical moment when the spark of an idea manifests into something awesome and interesting in our physical world. Guests are given a random character, random plot, must pitch these two things as a story, detailed as your heart desires. Once the 30-second pitch is expired, there will be 2 additional rounds, each with a unique twist, where the story must be repitched. Audience heckling, if you're there, is mandatory, so go for it. As a lifeline, 2 mulligans. So if you have a spin and you're like, there's no way in hell I'm going to work with that, totally good. I'll respin it for you. Let's just not do it more than twice in a row. Okay, let's bring up the Wheel of Doom. I really like to use that sound. It makes me happy. All right, so I've got this broken out as characters A, characters B. They're all randomized. So there's no it's not like one set in one and one set in the other. The wheels were too big if I shoved them all in there. Same with plots, and then same with notes. We'll do a note from A and a note from B to just mess you up at the end. We got over 4 billion combinations possible. So do you want to start with A or B on this one?
All right, give me your B tier characters.
The B team, the B team. All right, we're on the B side. Let's spin it and see what we get. You'll hear this sound, by the way. Not that one. A brother and sister struggling to impress their superhero parents. All right, can work with that. And then plots A or plots B?
A plot.
A plots.
We'll mix and match.
All right. Oh, I like it. Variety in the workout, man. That's what it's all about. Is mistakenly sent to heaven. Okay. All right. So brother and sister struggling to impress superhero parents end up in heaven. Right? Run with it.
Oof. All right.
So you're going to hear the chimes when 30 seconds is up, right? So I'll start it and just freeform it. Like off we go. As much detail as your heart desires.
All right.
Yep. So yeah, go.
So in our story, we have a brother and sister who know that their parents are told their whole lives that their parents are superheroes, right? But they don't know who. They're orphans. So they spent their whole lives searching for their superhero parents to try and show them what they've become, only to tragically get run over by a bus because they didn't look both ways when they cross the street. They go to heaven where they meet God, who is their superhero parent.
Oh, nice.
And Jesus is the jealous brother.
That took a turn, man. I did not expect that, but I like it. All right. Yeah, I'm getting to see how your brain works now. So let's throw some notes into this and let's see if we can totally screw up your story and make you redo it. So as the meddling producer or the really terrible publisher, let's add time travel. Right? So another 30 seconds or so, you'll hear the chimes, and let's work that in. What do you got?
But they end up in heaven. I'm still running with the Jesus is jealous of them. This is before he's become the Messiah and been crucified. So he hasn't really grown up yet. He's kind of a little brat, and he keeps trying to undermine them at every turn when they're trying to impress God.
He's got some things to learn.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What about the time travel aspect on this one?
Well, it's before he it's not current day. It's before he.
It's the before times. All right.
Right.
No,
it's like before AD.
All right.
That's kind of how I tried to work that in.
Right. All right. No, that sounds good. When he's like dead. Okay. So let's throw in one more note, and we're gonna bring this one home with a resolution. So I need you to wrap up this story for me when we get to the end. What do we got? What if we set this in a school for gifted mutants?
Respin.
Respin that one. Yeah, I guess we're getting a lot of the mutant going on here. Let's go. Great, but let's add a positive message about the dangers of cyberbullies.
Well, it ends with them learning to reconcile reconcile their differences, and the two twins are sent back to use their superheroes in a more modern day and age. There's our time travel, where they start to do PSAs and educate students about the dangers of cyberbullying.
PSAs. God's our dad. Yeah, all right. You know what? I'll run with it.
Like a modern day Bible, right?
It's like the twist. It's good. You got the cyberbullying. I'm gonna say bravo, sir.
Thou shalt not dox.
Thou shalt not dox. Honestly, that's a pretty good one to add into the thou shalt not, for sure. All right, let's do another one. Let's see. You're humming along here. Do you want to go A or B on your next one?
We did B characters last time, right?
Yes.
All right, we'll do A characters.
All right, let me spin it up. Let's see what we got here.
Hydrate for this one.
That's right. A group of sentient toys separated from their child.
Okay, this sounds familiar. I think I might have seen a movie about this once.
It's something like that. Yeah, I forget what it was called. What was it? Little Soldiers? It was the what was the one with the toy soldiers?
Small Soldiers?
Small Soldiers, that was it. Yeah, that was like violent. That was a good movie. All right, anyway, plots A or plots B?
B plot.
B plot. All right. Sentient toys on their own and involved in a complicated love triangle. Well, that got weird. All right, respin it or run with it?
We're running with it.
We're running with it. Yeah, I'm kind of.
I could pretty much rehash part of Toy Story at this point, right?
You could. It's just I'm not sure about the category of toy, quote unquote.
Oh well, I wasn't going to take it that. I would. Why would the kid have that category of toy?
I'm just going to leave that one to you, and I'll give you 30 seconds, and let me see what you got, man. Go for it.
All right. So here we have a classic story of sentient toys who are loyal to their kid, and they're all boxed up in a garage sale, unfortunately, and they're sold across the country, and they're making an epic cross-country journey to try and return home to their owner. But along the way, group politics threaten the survival of the group.
Nice. That's where the love triangle's coming in, right?
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
I'm keeping it general because I'm waiting for the wrinkle. I know it's just gonna go up in flames in a second.
You can't get too detailed. We'll throw in an A and a B, and let's see what we got here. For your first wrinkle, we're going to go with, if we turn this into a franchise, what's the next one going to be about? All right. Go for it.
So it takes years and years and years for them to make it back to the kid. And he's grown up by the time that they make it back. And they reveal their identity to him because he's a bit of a wayward soul. He's getting into trouble. He's listening to that rock and roll. He's experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and they are trying to now save this boy's soul, still dealing with this turmoil love triangle that has not resolved itself, but has only become more embittered because of the trials they faced in trying to get to him. It's a story of love, family, and survival.
I like it. All right, good. All right, let's throw in that wrinkle. Yep, those darn kids listening to that 9 Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson and just taking a turn. Yep. Yeah, I hear you. All right, here we go. I was that kid. Let's add a sassy best friend and then wrap it up with an ending. So go for it. Tell me how this all resolves.
So the toys realize they can't reason with him on their own. What they do is they find, I'm going to improvise on the best friend bit a little bit. They find another child who they bond with, and because they're able to get through to him, then they introduce the child to the main character, who becomes a surrogate big brother figure, and it's his responsibility and fondness for the wee lad who pulls him off his errant course and turns him into a responsible person. And by this time, the group dynamics are healthier because this infamous love triangle has been resolved in a healthy and mature way.
Brilliant, man. I like it. We got to a good ending. That sounds satisfying. I was invested. I was definitely invested in that one. to see. Hey, look, there's always time for I love a good big brother come back around kind of story. Those are that's a good trope, man.
It's a
We don't
classic archetype.
yeah, not enough of those. So at this point, well, first of all, just thank you because this was a great conversation tonight. Really enjoyed it, and really fascinating digging into you and just how you work and all of these different things and influences that you have. It's very revealing when you see somebody's experiences come out in the way they work, and so I appreciate you being open and honest about all that kind of stuff. The book sounds fantastic, so it's definitely one that I want to get on my shelf as well. And I'm going to go ahead and give you another 30 seconds just to do a wrap up for me. And so, close it out. Floor is yours. Repeat something. If you want to do an interpretive dance, like that's cool too. Like whatever it is. This is your time now, man. So go ahead and wrap it up.
All right. Well, first I want to thank you for having me on here because likewise, I had an awesome time. Great conversation, great questions. So it was a lot of fun. For anyone who's late to the party or short memory, my name's Cal Logan. My debut novel came out 2 months ago. It's about mercenary twins who are demon hunters in feudal Japan. It's very character driven, very dark and violent. So those with squeamish stomachs need not apply. But for fans of like First Law, Berserk, Shogun, Demon Slayer, it's right up your alley if you like those things. Hard at work on the sequel, and you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're still listening, thanks so much for hanging out.
And you're callogan.com, right?
Yes.
Okay, super easy. Yep, that's good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just wrap up on the outro and then hang out. Well, I'll just talk to you in the green room right after we say goodbye, right? So here we go. Folks, thank you for tuning in and spending some time with us tonight. Special thanks to Cal for being a great sport and wonderful guest. Highly encourage you to check out his work. Links to all the things are in the description of the video on YouTube and Rumble. And if you would be interested in being part of the MIRTHquake community and a guest on the show, it is easy. Head over to mirthquake.show for all the details, and hopefully soon we'll be prying open your brain, throwing it out on the internet for everyone to see. Cal, thank you very, very much. This has been great and would love to have you back. Certainly, as book 2 does all that kind of stuff. Come back around. You're welcome anytime. All you got to do is just hit me up on Twitter. Good.
Will do.
Yeah, and if anybody's watching and they're just like I don't know, I want to be on the show, but it's really not that big of a deal. We just have a good conversation and have some fun. That's all. I'm trying to keep this thing as light as we can possibly keep it. So. All right, so thank you to everyone if you're still around and watching and all that kind of stuff. If you're watching this afterwards, after the stream, because I have a few of you that do that, just make sure, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm and all that kind of stuff and helps both of us. And that's all. Good night, folks. And Cal, I'll talk to you in just a moment. Dee-dee-dee.